Okay. Alright, so we are back where we left off. And we've got some work to do here on the steps. Some work on the foreground stonework. We've got some work to do definitely in the background. We got to start dappling in some color that we're going to be using, although the primary colors are already like established. Alright. So alright, here we go. So these stairs can be like super tricky when you're doing them. And so it looks like we got a couple of viewers here. That's cool. Hey, what's up, everyone? So if you haven't seen the stream before, this is an image I'm working on, personal piece for my Dungeons and Dragons group. We play remotely. I try to give them as much like visual little pieces for me to hand out as possible. And this is a new area that they're going into, and it's going to have like these islands like that. And this particular island, the is from called the Oracle. It branches off to all these other different islands, and so here's two gates going off to two other separate islands. In the back there'll be, it's like a cathedral castle kind of thing that we'll have going on, which goes down to like a little bit of a dock area, and the other one over here is a little town. It's definitely supposed to invoke the Dark Souls or Game of Thrones Niles kind of look. So it's definitely supposed to do that. But as you see here, this image is comprised mostly of triangles. So there's the center mass triangle here, two triangles back there. Even the arches themselves create triangles. So the eye is looking at a series of triangles, and the front third here is very dark because it's supposed to be the closest. So the other 2/3 is much lighter in value, and that gives us the separation. In the last video we kind of fixed some of the perspective issues. I know we still have a couple other ones as far as like foreshortening and things like that that we can kind of correct a little bit here and there, but for the most part I think this will work. If this was a client piece, I would definitely be a little bit more inclined to correct to a perfection, and probably I should do it for myself as well. It's good practice. But the purpose of this, what it's going to be used for, this is still pretty adequate. But moreover, the purpose of it as far as an exercise is for me to work on my values, because I really want to make sure that I'm establishing my values correctly. Now we've already gone in through and worked on our color a little bit. We've already brought in some color. So now we're just getting to a point where we're making that color work for us. I really want to work on these stairs a little bit because I feel like they're bothering me. And when something bothers me like this, I gotta attack it a little bit. They just don't look right. They look as lazy as they are. This was a really lazy way to drop them in. I mean, it worked for the moment, but it was super lazy way to drop them in. And now I got to go back and make good on my my laziness. So, a lot of the times what you'll end up doing especially when you're starting off like a loose sketch and concept art, and I didn't resolve my perspective issues immediately, like off the bat. Like just didn't do it, because I knew I was going to come back through and redo it anyway. I was going to make, you know, changes. But a lot of times when you do that, what you end up doing is you just kind of drop in a general shape, like I did, and then you have to go back through and fix those issues. Well, when you do that, you got to pay the piper. And so now I've got to go back through and I have to do the tedious task of correcting these things and making them look like they make a little bit of sense. Which I know is kind of like not good for... It's kind of boring work, but it's important to learn to get these things done and get them done correctly. And I think I got my opacity up a little bit too high, because I'm getting just way too heavy of a stroke. There we go. So now we're just starting to get a little bit more sense of what these stairs really do look like. Something important when you're doing stairs is to remember perspective on them as well, because as they go up, depending upon how they sit at your eye level, you're going to see less of the top, and you're going to see more of the face of the step when you're below, when the top step is below your eye level, or is above your eye level, or you know what I'm saying. You know, you're going to start to see more of the front of the step as it gets to your eye level, and less of the top of the step. So make sure that when you're doing steps this way, that you remember what the lighting is supposed to be like. So in this case, since the lighting is coming from the back, we don't have a strong lighting source, so the top area will be a slightly lighter value than the face, than the front facing part, and it should be going from less to more, because again, it's coming closer and closer to the eye level as it goes up. So just a handy little thing to remember. I think a lot of times when people draw stairs, they just think, oh, stairs go up, so all I have to do is draw dark and light, alternating rectangles, and that'll do the job. In an extremely primitive two-dimensional kind of way, it does do the job, but the human eye does not get fooled so easily. And a lot of times if you do it that way, you're going to end up having to explain yourself later on about what it is that your audience is looking at. And that's bad. I mean, there's some things that, like, it makes sense to explain to others. makes sense to explain monsters or, you know, mythical creatures or things like that. I mean, even then, you kind of don't need to explain it if it's done right, because the visual information will tell all the story. But every once in a while, you'll draw something and somebody will be like, "Oh my god, what the hell am I looking at?" And it's a valid "what the hell am I looking at," just because, like, it's wild, you know. They've not seen anything like that, and that's good, because that means you're exploring a new design for them. But things like stairs should not be too incredibly difficult to figure out. Now here's where we go from. So this is still a fairly two-dimensional design. So what I want to do is I want to start to split up these steps a little bit. Give them a face and a lip. And so as you can see, what that does is that tells you almost immediately that these have a little more depth and angle to them than maybe you originally thought. Now I'm going to go back and actually redo pretty much that whole entire right side, because I feel like the spacing is not what I wanted. That's okay. I think I want it just to the right a little bit more. And remember that since you are seeing more of that front face here, if their stairs have a little bit of a lip to them, which these have a little bit, that you're going to have to change the angle of your curve as it goes up a little bit to meet that front face. And so what we're going to do to establish that front face a little bit more is we're going to create a slight highlight. It's more highlight than I want. I like the value of it, but I think we're going to have to drop the opacity down. We're going to create this slight highlight. I think I've got to even go just a little bit darker down here. And we're probably going to go back by this edge again at a later date. We're probably going to go and revisit the face of it again. So I'm not, because we got to add in texture and stuff, so I'm not too terribly worried about it looking rough or too bright right now, just because I'm just trying to establish the dimension of those stair fronts. And again, what you should remember is that since we're going up on a staircase, which we're going to see more and more of that front face as we go up, because it's getting closer to that horizon line, the width of that lip that's on the edge here, that should increase a little bit. Now it's far enough away from the camera, so to speak, that it's not going to be a dramatic amount, but I'm just going to pop it up. I'm going to use the right bracket and pop it up 1, because since it is further up, it's a staircase going away, it's further up, it's also going to shrink a little bit in size to compensate. So we're seeing more of the face, which isn't a whole lot to begin with. So I'm only going to pop it up just 1 point as it goes up, because again, I'm just trying to convince you that you're seeing what you're seeing, not necessarily trying to oversell. See, like right here, like that lip, that's not good for me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab this, I'm gonna shrink that down. I think I got a little overzealous with that. Because now you're seeing all lip, and you don't want that. And again, most of these little things we're gonna go back through when we start adding texture to that stonework, and it's gonna cover up most of that anyway. This is still extremely loose. What's up, viewer? Feel free to make some comments or ask some questions or whatever. You know, just if you want to see anything or if you have any questions on something, feel free to shout. Now these are very dark, probably unnaturally so. So we're going to take some of this highlight. Actually, that's too much. We're going to take just a little bit of this highlight, which is really more of a mid-tone now. And we're going to get up underneath that lip. But we want to leave a little bit of that dark in between those strokes. So you see a corner, and you also see the underneath of that lip. But you're getting some of the bounced light off of the step itself. And again, this is a little subtle thing, but it does wonders for adding in small amounts of believable detail. Because like, I don't know, it's like what I try to do all the time, because I'm not as good as I want to be. I'm probably never going to be as good as I want to be. But when I go buy things, like if I walk by a set of stairs, or if I walk by you know, a certain type of wall or whatever like that, and it's something that like I just don't draw too often, or if it's something that I do draw a lot and I'm just kind of questioning it, what I'll do is I'll just kind of sit there and take some mental notes, or I bring a sketchbook with me or something like that, and I'll start to like draw like little strange details about it that remind me like what about this makes it believable, even though I'm seeing it with my own two eyes. But what about that like sells me on I'm seeing a staircase, or I'm seeing an elevator door, or I'm seeing, you know, ice cream cart. You know, like what about that is like telling me without a doubt that I'm seeing what I'm seeing. Oops. Let me click on it. So now we're going to go over here and we're going to take just a little shadow line, and we're going to go right in between that mid-tone. I'm going to pop the opacity back up a little bit. We're going to go right between that mid-tone and that highlight, and this will reinforce that lip just a little bit for us. Not a whole lot, but it'll create enough separation, just enough. I think we probably need to even go more opaque, because I don't think I'm getting enough. Yeah, see how that's not super opaque. So now we should have a little bit of believability. Now remember that we have a division here. This is where we're gonna make some rubber hit the road with this picture. So we have a little bit of division, because these should be separate slabs, right? So that light is not going to go across them perfectly or correctly. Let's go back and do that again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish making this little bit of separation. Come back through. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pop that highlight on the, actually that's kind of cool. We'll make that like a little bit of a split stone there. Give a little bit of interesting detail. But what we're going to do is we're going to pop that highlight across that that crevice right here, because we don't want the highlight to go across the dark part, because it doesn't make sense. Because if it's is it a highlight or is it a shadow? And if you're not defining one, then you're definitely not defining the other. And we're going to come through and hold on, getting some comments here on my. So we'll take that highlight color, and we are now, remember where our lighting is coming from. It's coming from the right side, so we don't want to highlight areas that it doesn't make sense to highlight. And we can take this and maybe we'll make it just a touch brighter, just to kind of sell that edge a little bit. And I like kind of adding in some of these broken stones. Those are super interesting. And they don't have to be perfect right now, because this isn't exactly a rendering pass, but we are adding little rendering elements to it. Yeah, definitely getting the ding sounds there, unfortunately, because I have my speakers right by my microphone. So that's probably you, Blake. So when we back out here just a little bit, now the steps are starting to get a little bit of definition to them. They're starting to look a little bit more believable. And we're going to do that same highlighting and shadowing kind of effect when we get up to like the stone pillars and the arches and things like that. But we want to add a little bit more design to them, because obviously if you spent the time to make all this, you wouldn't just use flat stone. But we just haven't gotten there yet. We definitely don't want to go too far into the rendering yet, because I think that as we go through, we're going to make some design choices that will change. Like, I don't know if I want to add in like too much overgrowth, or if I want to make it a little bit sandier. I think a little bit of overgrowth is okay, but not too much. Again, it needs to be interesting, not noisy. And then also I want to add in this little bit of a fire into this torch here. I'm probably going to add in a secondary torch or something. Actually, I might end up getting rid of this torch altogether and add in, like, you know, something else, or I may add in something in addition to that torch. But I'm not 100% sold on that as being a necessity in the image, and it would be at this point still pretty easy to remove. Still got to do a lot of work on these stones here on the circle. Still got a lot of work to do up here, but since we're right here in this area, I want to, this is like one of the things where I think a lot of times, like, artists, they tend to like let their bad habits become acceptable, because this is hard. See how noisy it is? Oh, thanks, Blake. Well, you're my first actual comment in the stream. I know there's a bit of a delay, so you have to kind of forgive me for that. There's always going to be a delay with Twitch. So this is, like I said, this is where I think a lot of times artists tend to let their bad habits become them. Like they say, well, this is hard, and because it's hard, I'm just because life is difficult, I will remove my jacket. You know, I'll let this pass. You know, and this is tough because right here we have a lot of noise. We've got a little bit of a perspective conundrum because. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and paint in. This is what will phrasing. So this is what will like tell me what I need to do to make this look accurate. It's the littlest thing, but having this cleared out says a lot for what I need to get done for this. So this handrail now needs to be, and these steps, look how bad these are. This is where you get yourself in a ton of trouble. This is terrible. Terrible work. I'm glad I'm not trying to get paid for this, because I would definitely have some trouble justifying it. And I haven't even touched the water yet. The water's still flat, which it's not going to be. It's going to be very boisterous and, you know, moving water. Way more of a steely watercolor. But yeah, so here's where you've got to make these decisions of what you're willing to do to make yourself better. That's too light. Okay, that's good. That's where I want to be. So mix those colors there. Now, in a perspective situation, this doesn't make sense, right? Trying to navigate with other messages I'm getting. So this doesn't make sense because this is very MC Escher. MC Escher waiting to happen. So if that was a flat face, how could that be straight off like that? That doesn't really work. Jeez, Facebook people. Because now this is going at a weird angle and it's bending. So, and then it has to make another bend again to make it around that corner. So how could it be showing that many of that face, that much of that face? That doesn't make the least bit of sense. Because now we're showing a top, and a top here, and really what it should be like is up higher. Oh, come on. And then we should be seeing a lot more of the interior. So if that comes up straight here, that means that we're going to see a whole lot more of the side and not the top. That's where I goofed up earlier. Is I got really super lazy and I just let perspective go all sorts of bananas. It's better, but it's still not right. But it's one of those things that I don't know that I'm willing to. Again, it's asking yourself that question. I don't know that if I'm willing to go that extra mile. What is completely wrong and should not be tolerated is the height here. So we're gonna pop this up because nobody would make it go that slanty. That just would never happen. Because if you think about it in perspective, what that means is that that person had that rail like drooping. So it went from being on a human from about shin height to only about knee height, where you really want it to be closer to about a thigh for it to be a relatively effective rail. Oh, still going. And so again, we're going to paint the interior. And this is going to help us also remove more of the top that we don't want. Because we're getting to the horizon line for the eye. And so we should be seeing very, very little top, or of right there. So when we back out, now it's starting to feel a little bit more like a proper rail. Remember before it was just so droopy and so saggy, and it kind of made that really super weird slope. Now it looks like it's making a pretty, and then you go like, oh, what happened to it over here? It's gone. And then so that gives us permission when we draw this one here and we show that it's broken off, you're gonna be like, oh snap, like there's a thing. Like that's, you know, one of these things is not like the other. So now we have way more definition out of just a few things. We define the stairs a little bit better. They're not 100%, but they will be, or they'll be at least a solid B plus. But we've defined the stairs and we've defined that handrail to something that makes more sense. Again, if you were into construction or whatever, you're probably gonna look at that and be like, no one would ever build that outside of like dwarves or whatever, and even then they do a better job. But that's not where we're at. You know, eventually I'm going to start working on this water. I want to do a few more water studies before I start to get the water that I want, because otherwise I'm going to be going into it kind of blind. And I do want the water to be a little bit more choppy and look more like that rough, you know, rough water kind of thing. So I think that what we'll do is, and we still have all this to render out and make, ugh, it's so ugly right now. So I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead, since we're on this thing, is we will go ahead and add in some interesting little designs to it. Oh, this brush. So my Wacom tablet is old. It's an old Intuos 3, and I love it to pieces, but it's got the buttons that are on the actual pen, they click way too easy, and I always end up, for some reason, I don't know if it's like a left-handed thing or whatever, but I always end up rolling the pen around in my hand a lot, so that the buttons end up in my palm and I push them on accident. So I'm going to sample some of the highlight from the sun here, and I'm going to fix more of this here by making this a straight line, filling it in a little bit more. Oops, that last one was too much. And then I'm going to start popping it on some highlight along the rim. And I'm actually okay if it is a little rough, because what I'm trying to establish is that the stonework is degrading. It's, you know, crumbling and coming apart. So a few little dots to show like a recess or a crevice or even a little bit of a extrusion is okay. I'm gonna take this lower light one here. I'm just gonna dapple a couple little. I know this is getting towards rendering, but I'm just getting impatient. that's I shouldn't do that. That's actually where I goof up the most. I get impatient, and all of a sudden I start rendering out a piece, and I've forgotten that the other 98% of the image still needs work. And then I've eaten up all my time, and then my clients are not entirely thrilled. But again, on this one, it's not such a big deal because there are no clients involved. This is just a personal piece for my gaming group. Clean that edge up a little bit. So if we back up, yeah, so that's starting to look a little bit more like a proper stone rail. What I'll do is I'll take a soft round brush. Let me find where the. So these are new. This is a new brush set for me. I got it from one of my favorite artists, Dave Raposa. Amazing dude. That guy's helped me leaps and bounds on my work. But this is a new brush set I got from him because when I had to reset all my stuff, there's my brushes. Something happened and I lost all the custom brushes that I'd made, which kind of bums me out because I was really happy with them. But then it also is giving me a reason to try something new. This guy will work. Ooh, it's huge. I'm so damn big. And so we'll take this and we'll take like this mid-tone. Oh, it's way too heavy. And I just want to come through and just give it a little bit more of a darkness. Just a tiny bit. Because it's not getting direct sun over here. So it should not be getting too much highlight, but a little bit is permissible for the effect. Because I'm so damn big. All right, now we're going to go back to our flat brush, or a flat brush, I should say, because I'm not sure if it's going to be the same one or not. Looks close enough, I think. Does the same thing. Good enough. Up that opacity a little bit. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the brush style to multiply, just to make sure that it stays in the dark range, and then I'm not having to fight the value game too much. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some sections in the stone. Now right now they're going to seem pretty heavy, but we're going to fix a lot of these little issues that I have by doing it this way. So number one issue right here, and this was bugging me, I had all this like droopy stone. If you get droopy stone, you should go to your doctor and get antibiotics, get that shit cleared up. Where's that drippy stone? I don't know. Alright, so I've created these segments here, The number one thing I should do is I should highlight this. Oops, I forgot I'm still on multiply. Let's go to normal. There we go. What we're going to do is we're going to do like the same thing we did on the steps. We're going to just kind of go in on the cracked segments, the little recessed areas. Then we're going to flex some of the highlight there, and then come back across with the mid-tone, and that should give us a pretty favorable, very believable look. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this, come across that edge, come across that ass, I'm going to take this, I'm going to just go up there, whoop, up there, whoop, up there, whoop. And I should see now where there's, now that handrail right here, super defined. Even though it's not done, it's not whatever, but you get what's going on here. Before it was super muddy, and you couldn't. It was garbage. And now I'm not proud of that per se, but I'm definitely working towards feeling proud about it. And I can't wait to keep that like aesthetic through all of the stonework here, so it becomes more of a cohesive design, so it feels like this was all built by like this one like master crafter or whatever, the dwarf man. But if we back out now, it's like, even just like right here, it's like, whoa, okay, this isn't you know, just loose and choppy. This all is. Now it's called all this out. And this used to be like the part where it was like, oh, hey, I'm so damn big. Okay. Let's just grab this one and do this up while we're here. So that'll take but 2 seconds. Now I gotta decide what area I want to tackle next, but let's see, I'm going for about 45 minutes now. I may end up calling this stream a day and tackling it again another day. So anyway, most importantly, Blake, Lazy Destroyer, thank you so much for watching and commenting, and I'll get another stream going here again soon. And hopefully we'll be able to get some more work done on this, but that's where we're at now. We've gone ahead and gotten those stairs rendered out a little bit, just a little bit, and gotten the handrail rendered out just a little bit. And again, we'll go through and tighten it all up. Oh, dude, thank you so much. I really appreciate you watching. Like, it just means a lot to me. So and hopefully we'll get something a little more exciting in the next few episodes, even though I doubt it. This is my life. This is what I do. Anyway, cool, man. Well, thanks for jumping in, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.